Have you ever been called a nickname? And well, the nickname on the surface, it seems so harmless. The person that called you this name wasn't really trying to hurt you. More or less, they're just trying to tease you, maybe just, I don't know, get under your skin a little bit. The name, it pointed out something very embarrassing that happened to you. Let's say, kale tooth. Because you had a little leafy green substance chilling in your teeth and on picture day in third grade and no one told you. But for whatever reason, the nickname, it cut deep into the depths of your soul and you couldn't get that name out of your head and you just wanted to crawl into a hole. Asking for a friend. Turn to someone and share the worst nickname someone has given you. There was this one time in 5th grade. Now, something you need to know about 5th grade Taylor was, how do I say this? I was a little guy. I was a small guy. I couldn't have been more than 4'5". Think an Oompa Loompa.
Oompa Loompa Doompa Dee Doo.
Just minus the bad spray tan and green hair. And your boy was a walking skeleton. Incredibly skinny. Couldn't lift anything heavier than a feather. And well, honestly, I had a classic case of short man syndrome. And I hated being shorter than everyone else. And every time someone made me aware of being small, it would trigger me. Well, one day I was at my friend's house and we decided to go play basketball out in the front street. And as we're playing, I'm dribbling on the right side of the court. I give him a little hezzy, a little in and out Allen Iverson cross, and I get past him, I lose him, he breaks his ankles, and I'm heading to the rim thinking, oh yeah, easy bucket. And I get up to give my little jelly layup, and as I'm going up for the layup, as if my friend is LeBron James himself, he came from behind and blocked my layup.
Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. LeBron James with the rejection.
He blocks my shot. He turns around, looks me in the eyes, chooses violence, and says this: "Not today, little man." I was sent. I was so mad. No way he just called me little man. He knows how I feel about being short. The next couple weeks, this nickname repeated in my head over and over and over again. Little man, little man, little man. It was like a bad song that was stuck in my head. I couldn't shake it. This thoughtless nickname completely threw me into a spiral the next couple weeks. Now, when I look back at that moment, I realized that the problem wasn't being called little man. The thing that hurt the most wasn't necessarily being shorter than everyone else and being given a nickname because of it. When I repeated little man over and over and over again in my head, it was like I was telling myself I wasn't good enough for other people. The real problem? I was struggling with the idea that no matter how hard I tried, I wouldn't live up to people's expectations. How could someone love me if I'm a failure on the court? Now I get it. I get it. This is a big leap from being called short. But isn't it crazy when we repeat negative things in our head over and over and over again, we can quickly convince ourselves of believing terrible things about ourselves. Before I knew it, I convinced myself of things that weren't true. I was believing lies. And to be honest with you, I was buying into ideas of myself that were completely opposite of how God sees me. And if I were to guess, you've been there too. Today, we are going to start a new series called My New Playlist. For the next couple weeks, we want to look at some of the negative soundtracks that are always running in the back of our minds. These are beliefs that we have about ourselves, maybe about others, and maybe even about God. The problem is, most of the time, they are misguided, untrue, and toxic. John 15:4-5 says this, "Abide in me and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing." Ultimately, what happens in these negative soundtracks and thoughts we repeat to ourselves is we find it separates us from God. God literally wants us to abide in him or be in a relationship with him. But sometimes our thoughts get in the way and we find ourselves apart from God. For some of you, your soundtrack that you have was like mine in 5th grade. You feel like you don't stack up with others in sports, and you're constantly somewhere between trying and failing all the time. And you keep telling yourself, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. For some of you, your soundtrack you repeat in your head is tied to your friends. You and a friend in your circle got into a fight, and somehow the circle of friends has turned on you. And now you keep telling yourself, no one likes me. No one likes me. No one likes me. Maybe for you, your soundtrack is all about your future. Every dude in your family is either addicted, absent, or angry. So you've convinced yourself that you have no choice in who are you to become, and you keep telling yourself, I'm gonna be like them. I'm gonna be like them. I'm gonna be like them. Maybe there's something about your appearance that you just simply don't like. Something is different about you and you can't control it. Now your soundtrack is, God made a mistake. God made a mistake. God made a mistake. I don't know what your soundtrack is that you keep repeating to yourself, but if we aren't careful, we collect a lot of these soundtracks and create a whole playlist of them. And what this playlist does, it pulls us apart from God. So I guess the question is, how do you and I create a new playlist of soundtracks that point us to Jesus? Because let me bring you in on a little secret. God wants you to have a playlist full of soundtracks that brings you to the conclusion that he loves you. Over the next couple of weeks, we're gonna give you steps on how you can replace these negative soundtracks with some better ones. I think the first step we need to do to create this new playlist is to retire these negative soundtracks. We need to remove them from having any real estate in our thoughts and dominating how we think. I want to give you 3 questions you can ask yourself to determine whether or not you need to remove these soundtracks. Think of it like a trial in a courthouse. Whatever your soundtrack is, we're gonna place it under investigation, put it on the stand to question it, and see if it is guilty of pulling us away from God. 2 Corinthians 10:5 says this, "Take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ." I think by asking these 3 questions, we have the ability to flip these thoughts on their head and allow Jesus to rewrite them for us. God calls us to be obedient with our thoughts. However, we can't do that if our thoughts take captive over us. So here it is. Come with me here with these 3 questions. I want you to use these 3 questions to interrogate and investigate these soundtracks. You ready? Here's the first question. Is it true? One of the greatest mistakes you and I can make is to assume all of our thoughts are true. Is your soundtrack and thoughts in your head true of what God says about you? Okay, here's the second question. Is it helpful? Does the soundtrack and thought help me be closer to Jesus? Or does it pull me away from Jesus? Okay. Number 3, is it kind? If you aren't kind to yourself, it's like hanging out with a jerk all day long. We look at our relationship with Jesus. I would say he's incredibly kind to us. The question is, are you kind to you? We're about to head into small groups here in just a second, and you are going to have the opportunity to work through these 3 questions with our soundtracks. Here's my hope for you. You would have the courage today to interrogate your negative thoughts and give them over to Jesus. I believe Jesus wants your playlist to be filled with soundtracks that point you to him. You are loved. You're not a mistake. You have purpose. Forgiveness is possible. God can redeem anything. Imagine if these were the types of soundtracks stuck in our head. Students, are you ready to create your new playlist?